This is one of the most affordable Glock Mag 9mm AR pistols that also has a last round bolt hold open that you can find almost anywhere, at least as a complete configuration. So what makes a good home defense gun? Now this list is a little bit subjective, but overall, we need something that's gonna be super reliable. We need something that's gonna be very easy, almost mindless to operate under stress, easy to aim under stress, has an option to mount a light, has an option to mount an optic to it, and personally, I believe that everything should have a lot of capacity. And so what I came up with was this. Now I've had this gun for well over a year and I have put well over 900 and something rounds through it. Now, before we get too far into the video, just a heads up, I will have a parts list for everything that you're gonna see in today's video. Also, I was looking at my analytics the other day and I saw that about 72% of everyone that's watching these videos isn't subscribed to the channel. If you could do us a huge favor, hit the subscribe button and turn on all notifications. The reason that I ask is when you do hit the subscribe button, it trips the algorithm to recommend these videos to people that may have never been exposed to 2A content before. And ultimately, I think that's one of the best ways for us to get the word out about the 2A and getting people taking the responsibility of their own life into their own hands. Over the past couple of years, I've done reviews on multiple AR9s that are Glock Mag compatible with last round bolt hold open. And the ones that have been the most reliable are typically very expensive. Typically $1,000 hairs and beyond, and that's before you add lights and optics and stuff like that to it. So having something that can come in at less than half the price or less than a third of the price, and then being able to add your accessories to it is a huge benefit for a lot of people that don't want to spend a ton of money on this. Now, one thing you will notice about the EP9 is it is polymer almost from tip to butt. The only things on here that are metal are obviously the barrel, the bolt, the trigger group, the safety, and the internals, and obviously the buffer and spring inside of it. Aside from that, everything on this is made of polymer. And that had me a little bit worried when I first picked this up because being really affordable and also being made of polymer started throwing up red flags on how's this thing gonna hold up, what's the reliability gonna be like. Now, Extar is a company that came out a couple of years ago with the polymer AR9 platform. And this one is actually the Generation 2, which has a few changes to it over the Gen 1, which we'll talk about here in a second. These can be had in 9mm as well as 45 ACP that are compatible with Glock Mags. They're also available with the 6.5-inch barrel, and they also have a 16-inch rifle variant of this also. Additionally, they have different brace options. This is one of the OG braces, but they also have them available now with the SBA3 brace, which is adjustable. For the changes for Gen 2, the most noticeable one is going to be the handguard right here that has M-LOK slots on the side, but it goes beyond that. They also have an easy to remove flash can on here. And when I say easy to remove, I mean you can remove it with your hand. And then the barrel is recessed down. So if you want to throw a can on this to make it quieter, the can will recess in. And the inner diameter of this handguard is 41mm for reference. The fire control group on here is now made of steel. I guess the previous version was made of polymer. I never tested that version, but I don't want a polymer fire control group on an AR, so that's always a plus. And this fire control group is also adjustable, so you can adjust the weight of it up or down within about a pound. However, this fire control group, if you don't like it, it can be upgraded with any standard AR fire control group or trigger. I will have some of my favorites over at the parts list if you want to check those out, because I will be replacing this, just not in today's video. You can also replace the 90-degree safety. I will be replacing that with a 45 90-degree safety. That's easier to defeat as you're coming up. Almost all the parts in the lower can be completely swapped out with any standard AR parts. So that's always a good thing. They also upgraded the firing pin in the bolt so that it's beefier, and they also gave it a beefier extractor. There's also a metal detent back here for the buffer. I guess previously they didn't have a metal detent, it was plastic, and I guess they were breaking, hence why they upgraded it. So when I was testing this, I made sure to test this with a bunch of different types of ammo. So not only did I test this with, Blazer Brass 9mm 115 grain, I also tested this with some 124 grain as well as 147 grain. Additionally, I went and tested it with some Federal HST self-defense ammo to make sure that it would cycle self-defense ammo. And I tried it with a bunch of different types of magazines, including Glock OEM mags, ETS mags, P-mags, and the mags that are included with it, which I believe are rebranded P-mags. Interestingly enough, I was actually doing the testing on this guy at the same time that I was doing the testing on things like this guy, which is the Extar Arms MDP9. This one's also a Glock Mag 9mm AR, and this thing is probably 5 times the price as that one. Now, I didn't have hardly any hiccups with this, but I also didn't have any hiccups with this at all. Throughout the entire testing process, it was a little over 900 and something rounds. 0 malfunctions due to ammo, 0 malfunctions due to the magazines. Everything fed flawlessly. The only caveat to this, the only mag that will not work with this is a Glock 26 mag. You have to have a Glock 19 size mag or larger in order for it to work. So earlier, I said I wanted to make this build as mindless and easy to use as possible. So I was trying to think of this from the context of my wife being at home alone, needing to use this for self-defense. What would be some of the problems she would encounter, and how could she go through it and still use this if certain problems occurred? So first I thought about the optics, right? With a traditional red dot, if the battery dies, then you got to think about getting iron sights that flip up to co-witness. Now, my thought is, okay, she's not able to get to the range as often as me. Is she going to be able to think to go hit the buttons to deploy the iron sights? And so because of that, I went with this guy, which is the Firearms SLX 1X Prism Scope. And a prism is a little bit different from a red dot. You do get really good eye relief with this, but it's not as unlimited as a standard red dot. But the benefit is you get an etched reticle. So if the battery dies, you still have a way to aim it. However, the downside to that is you can't see it in the dark. But more on that when we go over the light that we put on here. The other thing that I want all of my red dots to have is phenomenal battery life. And not only do I want them to have phenomenal battery life, I want them to have a shake awake, or in this case, it's called auto live. And what that means is when your gun is just sitting and resting for a certain amount of time, the illumination on the reticle shuts off. And the moment you grab it, it kicks on. And that helps the batteries last way longer. Not only that, but now if something was to go bump in the night and I'm not home, my wife doesn't have to think about turning on a red dot. That was the other way of making it a little bit more mindless. Also, the SLX comes with 6 or 7 different height options for mounting it. You can make it cantilever back, you can make it cantilever a little bit forward, and it gives you a lot of flexibility on what part of the rail that you want to mount it to. The third thing that made me choose this one is the price. I think these are about 249-ish doll hairs, so it's not that badly priced, and this thing's been holding up throughout my testing the entire time. Now let's get to the light. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this optic will work even if the batteries are completely dead. But as I mentioned, you can't see it in the dark if the batteries are dead, and that's where this particular light is going to come in. So this is the Streamlight Rail Mount 2. Not only has it got a light, but it also has a green laser in it, which we'll talk about in a second. Additionally, there's different ways that you can activate this. So on the body of the light itself, you have a button for turning it on. There's also a pressure pad that comes with this. So if you wanted to mount this on the side, you could do so. And also, because it has a laser, this is my redundant sight system. Let's just say the red dot completely broke off of this thing. I still have a laser for aiming. And she don't have to think about flipping up iron sights. She can just simply press a button and activate the laser. This thing comes out to 1,000 lumens, 22,000 candela, and it has a 1.5 hour runtime. So you don't really got to worry about the batteries dying, especially if you're going to use it for home defense and you're setting this by the nightstand or somewhere close by. And this has 3 different modes. This actually has a physical switch on the side of it. So if you choose, you can do laser only, light only, or you can do laser light combo, which I currently have it set to. And I like the physical switch because with some lights, you kind of have to press these buttons a bunch of times to cycle through. And I don't want my wife to have to think about cycling through. If something's wrong, she can just simply flip this switch. This is a great setup, I think, for her and her uses. Like I said, I am going to change the safety selector and the fire control group later on. However, I have 2 aiming devices, but I only have 1 light. So we're going to need a redundant flashlight. And that's where a handheld flashlight comes in for home defense. Because number 1, you don't want to be aiming a gun everywhere that you're looking with the light, because what if you accidentally aim it at your kids? And that's where these handhelds come in. Now, this particular light is the Streamlight Strion. This is the 2020 model. There's only one mode that you could accidentally get into, which is a strobe. Aside from that, there's a tail cap. Then there's also a standard switch right here. But my favorite part is you have a tactile switch for the different brightness levels. One of the reasons why I chose this one as a home defense setup is it comes with a charging base that you can mount on your nightstand next to your bed. All the other ones that I have that have different chargers and stuff just kind of just sit on the nightstand, and I like that this one came with a base that's tucked out of the way. Now, obviously, everything's got pros and cons. I think so far in the video, we've highlighted a lot of the pros of this guy. I mean, first of all, it's cheap, it's super reliable, but what are the cons about it? First con is it has a non-reversible charging handle. And that's gonna be important if you're maybe a left-handed shooter, you know, and you're shooting like this. Now you gotta start charging it with your grip hand instead of your offhand. So if you're left-handed, you may want to consider something different. Speaking of the charging handle, the second con is it's a little bit too short. And what I mean by that is when I go to charge this, I keep banging my knuckle on the base of the optic. And this happened with other optics as well. It's not just this one. I hope they come out with one that's a little bit longer. Or if they do come out with one that's longer and it proves to be too long, maybe have one that folds away so that it's not sticking out like a sore thumb. Either way, it's a little too short for what it is. The other downside is the upper and the lower are proprietary. So with the lower, like I said, it can accept a lot of mil-spec AR parts, but this upper receiver, aside from the Picatinny portion, there's nothing about it that's gonna be interchangeable with any other ARs. Everything on here, including the handguard, is all gonna be proprietary. So that could be a pro or a con, just kind of depending on who you are. And the reason that that's important too, is you can't put any other uppers onto this lower, because if you'll notice on the front, there is no takedown pin. It simply hooks into place. It has a built-in pin system in the front, and then the removable pin is in the rear. So you're stuck with this upper if you were thinking of using a different one. The next con is the fire control group. Although it is adjustable, although it is made of steel, it is not a pleasure to pull this trigger. It's not a pleasure to shoot either. So like I mentioned, I will be swapping those out. More information at the parts list about that. Now let's talk about the recoil impulse. And I want to spend a little time on this because if you look at the footage from the other 9mm ARs that I think are worthy of home defense because they're reliable enough, they have very smooth actions in them. And that's part of the reason why those ARs are so much more expensive, is because they have proprietary technology to kind of smooth out and slow the bolt down just a hair so that you don't get the jerky recoil. And with this one, it's a little bit jerky because this is a direct blowback system. You're not going to get that smooth radial delay or roller delay feel that you get with other things like CMMG or Extar arms and things of that nature. So keep that in mind. It is a little bit jerky when you first start shooting it, but as you get used to it, you're able to start holding it a lot tighter, and it's a real pleasure to shoot after you get used to it. Knowing what I know now, I would definitely buy one of these with my own money. Now, I'm not telling you what to go do. I don't care if you go out there and buy one of these. It doesn't bother me at all if you do or you don't. Don't take this as me telling you what to do. I'm just telling you what I would do. It's reliable enough to be used for self-defense. It's affordable enough that it has a low barrier to entry, and to me, that seems like a great way to go. However, keep this in mind. I have a sample size of 1. I could have the sample size of the only one that works good. So make sure that you watch other people's reviews on this, because perhaps I missed something, or perhaps they have a common flaw that didn't occur with this example right here. All I can tell you is how this one performed. Keep those things in mind, because I saw someone on Reddit not too long ago saying that they bought something that I recommended and they didn't like it or it didn't perform right. Well, I have sample sizes of 1, guys. You got to keep that in mind, and that's with most reviewers. I do trust it with my life. In fact, as you could tell in this video, I trusted it enough for my wife to trust her life with it. And so if that says anything to you, cool. If that doesn't, also cool. If you want to see some really awesome 9mm ARs that are just a little bit more expensive, go check out this video right here. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments section, but until next time, guys, I love you, and you guys stay sexy.